Welcome, everyone, back to Mount Manitoba. And I'm Kirk Buchner, along with Evan Nolan, and we run NotInHallOfFame.com, and this is the Hall of Fame show. Along with NotInHallOfFame.com, we have the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame. A lot more votes are coming in for that, which is great. The Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, I got to take these off. I tried the glasses after you got on me last week, and
I was not trying to get on you. I was merely echoing a suggestion made.
I know. I'm kidding.
And we also run the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. And that's kind of why I told Evan before we went on that I'm a little bit zonked because I've been working pretty hard on a lot of that and a bunch of other things. Way too many things in my fire, let's just say. But if you like what we do, support us. Go to www.notinhalloffame.com/USA. On the top, you'll see the voting options. And you can be part of athletic history and help us decide. Actually, you all decide who's going to be who's going to be entering the first class of the U.S. Hall of Fame. We have 130 candidates in the athlete division, 100 in the coach division, 100 in the contributors division.
We have 130 in the coach division as well. It's the equal number.
I thought it was 100. I think
it's 130, 130, and 100.
Did it? Okay. That's
why I haven't done the videos for the That's why I haven't done the videos for the coaches too. It's just too many.
Yeah, it's an awful lot of work, and we really would like your support on that. But this is the Hall of Fame show, and we're not just going to promote our own Hall of Fame. We're going to go right to the main event, which is a colossal list. I'm pretty sure the biggest one they've ever done. The Hall of Fame.
I remember a couple of years ago it was like 106, and now we're at 173.
Yeah, obviously, if you clicked on this, we're opening up with the Pro Football Hall of Fame, who has now given us 173 preliminary nominees. I think that's a little overkill, personally. Having said that,
there are only 33 running backs.
Yes, and some of them aren't really running backs.
That's also true.
Yeah. I guess we're going to take a look at that. I will say that as much as I did say just a minute ago, I think 173 might be a little bit of overkill. They did correct a lot of people who were inconspicuously not there before.
Except
which one? Glenn Milburn? I don't think which one.
There's still no Drew Bledsoe.
There's no.
I know he's not a Hall of Famer, but he retired number 7 all-time in passing yards.
I didn't say all. I just said they corrected a lot.
If you're gonna give me Jake Delhomme every single freaking year, Drew Bledsoe needs to be on this list. I'm a Patriots fan. There are 24 Patriots on this list. 24 people paid for the Patriots. We could switch out Larry Izzo for Tom Brady pretty safely, and nobody would be offended, including Larry Izzo.
Well, let's get started on the quarterbacks. I'll also sort of mention whether they were there last year or not. So Mark Bulger who was not there last year. Okay. As you said, Drew Bledsoe is not here, but Randall Cunningham is. That's somebody that we're pretty big on. A lot of us on our mock.
He's getting close to the end of his run here.
He's getting very close to the end of it. I think there would only be 2 more years left, I believe.
2 more after this, yeah.
Yeah. So this is the third last one for him. So Randall Cunningham is somebody we're very big on. Jake Delhomme, as we've mentioned. Doug Flutie. Speaking of former Patriots, I guess.
Sadly, he got kicked out, and he's still probably the 4th best quarterback for the Bears of my lifetime. Doug Flutie.
It's probably true. A legend in Canadian football, I can definitely say that. A legend in Boston College.
True.
A legend in the NFL.
Hey, he's the last guy to have a drop kick in a professional game.
I do remember watching that game. That's back in the time when pretty much all you could watch were Bills games, living in the Toronto.
No, the drop kick was when he was back with the Patriots.
Did he not do one with Buffalo too?
He might have, but the last one he did was with the Patriots.
Okay,
so.
well,
I don't.
Yeah, maybe
the Buffalo Bills of 2006 did not matter. Nobody knows what happened with them. So 2003, 2004.
It was a little easier getting tickets around that time, though. I will say that.
When we're in between the dynasty and whatever is happening now, it was a lot easier to get tickets to Bills. The only thing that was hard to get was folding tables in that area. So
or seats that were not in view of a fight. Rich Gannon, who was not there last year, a former MVP.
Also a former Patriot.
That's right. I always forget that. Well, two of Terrell Owens' favorite people, Jeff Garcia and Donovan McNabb.
Yes.
Uh, and Steve McNair. Tony Romo, who was not nominated last year.
Correct.
This is his second year of eligibility, and Michael Vick.
Correct. Out of those, who's your choice if you only pick one?
Well, you only pick one. I think it's pretty clear I'm picking Randall.
I think it's a pretty easy choice for me. I'd say other than that, maybe. So if we take Randall out of it, I guess my second choice. I mean, McNair at least has an MVP. It's either probably McNabb or McNair.
Yeah, I got McNabb over him only because, again, what he accomplished with the Eagles was pretty good. I believe it was 4 consecutive NFC Championship games. Was it 5? Okay, my apologies.
Sure.
So 5 consecutive NFC Championship games. His stats for that era are very good, and he had less help. And when he says that, compare me to Aikman.
Yeah, well, of course.
And Aikman had Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin.
And he had Bud Pinkston.
I think one year his best receiver was Brett Selleck.
Yeah.
Nothing against these fine NFL players, but
they're not Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith.
They're not right, exactly. Or Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin, I suppose.
Emmitt Smith and Michael Irvin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So new again, just
maybe not even Alvin Harper. So
God, yeah, there's another name. Yeah, so running backs, there's 4 more than last year. Running backs, like you said earlier, we went from 17 to 30.
Just by the way, 2 years ago there were 17.
Last year
we 33. What?
Last year too, 17.
Or was last year? Maybe I just have my numbers. I may have looked at the wrong chart. So yeah, we had 33 now. It's crazy how many we have here.
And some of these people, I again, if you're a fan of them, or if you are them, I'm not trying to disrespect you. I think there's just some people who don't have a shot in hell for this. And we might be sort of pushing something. I'll float my theory there too. You probably saw in our little group chat that there's been some interesting things about that. I wonder, because I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, not so much that I want my cousin to stop. Hey, cousin Don, if you're watching or listening, stop sending me all these right-wing, far-right conspiracy theories. I'm not growing a tail because I was vaxxed. Trump's not going to be magically reelected this year, not 2024, this year. These things aren't happening. I just wanted to get that off my chest.
That was out of nowhere. Continue.
Yeah, I've been getting 4 a day, and I'm too nice to sort of block him, like my brother says I should do.
Got it. So what's going on with these running backs?
Yes, thank you for bringing me back there. I just had. Can you tell that's been getting on my nerves, huh? 17 to 33. So let's look at the ones because we're doing this alphabetically.
So what was the conspiracy theory that you were talking about? You thought?
Oh, sorry. My conspiracy theory is that I think I wonder if the Hall of Fame just wants to get more eyeballs and more names on there for their fan vote. You drive up your site traffic, and you run from there.
Maybe, but I'm not sure that Chris Warren or John Kuhn are really pushing, or Terry Allen are really pushing the needle. I love Terry Allen. He's great at the Patriots. He's not a Hall of Famer.
Michael Vick does.
I suppose Michael Vick does, but Michael Vick does not play running back. So
no, but I'm just saying going from 133 to 173.
Yeah, but I mean, there were 9 quarterbacks before. Now we have 10. That's not like the biggest deal, but 17 to 33 on running backs is crazy. So anyway,
yeah. Well, the first one belongs, and that's Sean Alexander.
Yeah. So we have our good friend Jack Silverstein has been asking us for us to predict our next 5 classes, not who we think are getting, but who we'd want to get in. And for me, Sean Alexander actually does get in my 5 in my 5th class. So this is somebody who I have a very serious thought process on for Sean Alexander. He's one of only 2 running backs who got in out of the 25 picks I have. So
yeah, for me too. Well, Terry Allen, who you've talked about before, Jamal
Mhm.
Anderson, that's another interesting one. I think at this point, if you don't have, unless you had an explosive peak,
Mhm.
10,000 yards or nowhere close to it,
Yeah.
you don't belong here.
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, we're gonna have trouble when Frank Gore gets here in a few years. So, you missed Mike. I'll stop. By the way.
oh no, I haven't got to it yet. That's because I just said Jamal Anderson.
Yeah, Allstott comes first alphabetically. That's okay. Continue.
Oh, okay, I screwed that up. My bad. Mike Allstott. If there's gonna be a fullback, I'd like him. But
I'd still take Lorenzo Neal over Allstott, but Allstott's a hell of a player.
yeah, Tiki Barber, who he did make the 10,000 yard mark, but I've always said it before. I'll say it again. Nobody's hurt from retiring early, at least one season earlier, more than Tiki Barber is.
Agreed.
Yeah. Michael Bates, he's really more of a kick returner.
He's a kick returner.
Yeah. Larry Centers, Jamal Charles. Charles, he's here for the first time. 10,156 yards from scrimmage.
Outside shot. He's at least somebody who belongs in the conversation. I don't think he'll ever get in, but he belongs in conversation.
I've got him lower than some people who've never even sniffed the semis. But
Yeah.
keep going. We got Stephen Davis. One person, Corey Dillon, is one of those
Right.
people.
Yeah, Corey Dillon. I also want just a quick word about Larry Centers.
Mhm.
Larry Centers is pretty much the first real receiving back in football history. I mean, there were guys who caught passes, but Larry Centers was literally the third down back catching passes out of the backfield, and he caught a ton of them for a bunch of teams, including the Patriots, mostly the Cardinals. I always think of him. He's somebody who I like having the conversation. He'll never get in, but he's an interesting name anyway.
Warwick Dunn, who's I watched a lot of him as a Saints fan because with him
Mhm.
spending his career mostly in Tampa.
Plus, he was once on the cover of Cat Fancy, right? Remember that commercial, that old SNL or the old ESPN commercial?
I do not.
Oh, that was one of the funnier ESPN commercials.
I will
So
have to look that up.
yeah,
That alone makes him more qualified than Charlie Garner.
yes, Charlie Garner is no business being here. No offense, Charlie Garner, but
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't stack up. Uh, Eddie George does belong in this conversation.
he does.
Amon Green barely, but okay, I'm okay with that.
Priest Holmes is interesting.
Priest Holmes is very interesting. I like Priest a lot as a player. But he's almost in that Eddie George, Corey Dillon clump, this cluster of
Mhm.
people, which
Yeah, I
is
mean, take those three people. Who would you rather have, Dylan, George, or Holmes? Yeah, I mean, I'm partial to Dylan, but
I'm more partial to Holmes, but I mean, like,
fair
I'm
enough.
not upset no matter which one of those three I'd have.
Yeah, they're all about the same. I agree with you. One's more explosive with Holmes. I think George is more bruising and Dylan's more a combination of the two. So,
Steven Jackson's right up there in that category.
mhm.
Another real good one. Chris Johnson
Step
started
below for
pretty
me.
strong, but overall didn't have it.
Yeah.
Uh, Daryl Johnston is an interesting one.
Ooh,
His last year of eligibility, he wasn't on the ballot last year. How much of Emmett Smith's success can we credit to Moose?
good question.
An awful lot.
Yep.
Thomas Jones,
Yep.
another good one. Someone you mentioned earlier, John Kuhn, who's
He was a Packer.
Vontae Leach.
Yeah. No offense. Again, very good player, does not belong in the conversation.
Same with Dorsey Levens.
Yeah.
Was going back to your thing, was a Packer. But if I'm also going to say that if you didn't get 10,000 rushing yards in this era, and you definitely didn't get 10,000, you didn't get 8,000 all-purpose yards,
Yeah.
like with Dorsey,
What are
it's
we
just
doing? Yep. Anyway.
Jamal Lewis, one of the more, I think, possibly the most unique member of the 2,000 rushing yard club.
I agree.
Yeah. Eric Metcalf, more of a returner.
Return. Yeah.
Also, he's lined up at wide receiver. Glenn Milburn, the person you had to look up last year to see who he was.
Correct.
I think I had to do the same thing.
Hold on, let me see. I had it. I think I had it last year. I haven't updated their overall rankings yet because I haven't had time. But Glenn Milburn, do I have him down here? No, I don't have it. But I was looking at the overall PFF rankings for Pro Football Reference rankings,
Yeah.
see how they were. And Glenn Milburn was ridiculously low before, so I don't have it here now right now. So continue.
Someone you mentioned before, Lorenzo Neal.
Yeah, Lorenzo Neal, and this is actually read Jack as well. Jack Silverstein loves Lorenzo Neal. I also love Lorenzo Neal. Blocked for both Dylan and LaDainian Tomlinson. Huge parts of both of their successes in Cincinnati and in San Diego. If we're going to put one more fullback in the league or in the hall, Lorenzo Neal's the guy for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess just so I have that anti-Saint bias. When I say anti-Saint, I just mean people I've watched a hell of a lot of, which is why Allstott sort of first and foremost in my league. Why I was so huge.
Oh, I mean, I will hear the argument of Allstott. Allstott was a better runner probably than Neal, but Neal was one of the most devastating blockers
from the fullback position. Out of this group, it's going to be real hard to see either of those guys.
No, we'll never see a fullback in the Hall of Fame again.
I don't think so. Tony Richardson. Okay. Robert Smith, who, well, again, statistically nowhere close. Really good at the end of his career, but then the end of his career, he just retired very early again, like a lot of other people did. I think it was 8-year vet, if I remember correctly. His 2 Pro Bowls were in his last 3 years.
Mm.
So Fred Taylor, who has befuddled a lot of us, not that he's here, but that he is sort of the one out of this group that gets pushed as a semifinalist on a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, Fred Taylor is a very good player. He has a whole bunch of yards. I know there are a lot of people who care about him as a person. I would take Sean Alexander over Fred Taylor every single time.
I think pretty much our group does too. The only one that sort of comes up for me that I would debate Sean Alexander with is Ricky Waters.
Mm-hmm. Who's here?
Yeah.
Right now.
Yeah, who's here? He's running out of time. This is his 3rd last year on the ballot. Correct me if I'm wrong. He's been a semifinalist before, right?
He has, yes.
Yeah. Brian Westbrook, another pretty good player, but it's not going to happen. And Ricky Williams.
Speaking of Saints' bad feelings,
I don't have a problem with him, the player. I have a problem with what they did to get him. Never had a problem with Ricky.
I get it.
Yeah, Ricky Williams didn't do anything wrong. Ricky Williams, best thing that ever happened to him was to get traded to Miami, where the pressure was off. He had a phenomenal year, and they had an archaic rule about pot, which was colossally stupid. Ricky was honestly equally stupid because he knew what was going to happen to him if he did it anyway, kept doing it. He was targeted for it. And no, I mean, Ricky Williams was one hell of a player, but the amount of poor decisions that he made, and just honestly, he's one of those guys. My best friend always sort of like put it perfectly. He says, like, Ricky Williams is one of those rare football players that may not love football.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's possible. And he had a lot of anxiety issues. That's why whenever he would do like interviews, like after the game, he'd keep his helmet on. So, no, I mean, I don't really. No, I've actually got zero ill will towards Ricky Williams. All my hatred's towards Mike Ditka.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
and he's already in the Hall of Fame, so
as he should be. But yes. So I think we're pretty much in the same opinion. Alexander's our number 1 guy. Waters is my number 2. Is he your number 2, or do you have somebody else?
I think Waters is a good choice, number 2. I mean, personally, I think it's Alexander. And then, I mean, I do love Corey Dillon. He's got to be up there for me. And then I really think that Lorenzo Neal is way up there for me again, but it's based off of blocking, which hardly ever gets you into anything. So unless you're on offensive lineman, of course.
Right. The wide receivers only went up by 3. So we've got a lot of great ones here and a lot of Antoine Bolden, who has an excellent shot down the road. I think he'll advance, but he's not gonna.
Yeah, I was going through that when we did that thing for Jack. It's just so hard for me to get Bolden in. There's just so many people.
Mhm.
So
I don't know that he's necessarily going to go in anytime soon, but I do think he's on a path that could get him there.
makes sense.
Yeah. Troy Brown is not.
Troy Brown is one of those players who played for the Patriots. Is a much better argument for getting into the Pro Football Hall of Fame than Julian Edelman does, and he's not getting in. So,
Same with
although
Donald.
I will say Troy Brown has more interceptions than any of the rest of these receivers combined. Troy, do you remember? Do you remember Troy Brown playing defensive back?
No.
There was one point during the 03-04 season where we were short of defensive backs. He moved Troy Brown to defensive back and offense, and he had like 3 interceptions during those Super Bowl years.
There you go.
So,
Donald Driver, who again did a pretty good career, but there's just so many others who just stack up better than him.
I mean, he's probably just on the Packers wide receiver depth chart for me. I mean, one of them is still playing in Devontae Adams, but I'd say he's 4th in people who are. I mean, if you're including Devontae Adams, he's 3rd without Devontae Adams to me. I have Sterling Sharp and the next guy, Antonio Freeman, over Driver.
Yeah, and Freeman's not getting in either.
Freeman's not getting in either.
Someone who you probably like a lot, but probably won't get in either, Irving Fryer.
Another player who has a better shot at the Patriots of getting the Hall of Fame as a wide receiver than Julian Edelman. Because I'm going to keep saying that as we're
should.
So
Fryer should. Second last year. So, or no, third last year.
He's not getting it. By the way, Irving Fryer was a first number 1 overall draft pick. By the end of the episode, can you tell me the only franchise that's never had a number 1 overall pick play for them? This trivia question came up in my
So
not drafted by, but ever play for them.
So I mean, there's one team in the NFL that never had a number 1 pick overall play there.
Correct. Same thing with one team in the NBA as well. We don't need it right now, but just think about it before we get to the end of the night.
Okay. Here's someone who I have nice memories of, but who's not getting in. Dante Hall. He's here really as a returner. But if we're gonna have a returner get in, and I guess he's gonna be the last one, it's Devin Hester. Because we talk a lot on the show about records that'll never be broken. I think we can safely say every kick return record will never be broken again.
Yeah, it's probably true. Yes.
So yeah, Devin Hester, he was a finalist last year. There's no reason to think that he's not going to be again, and I think could get in. I think this bodes very well for him, but but you never know. Torrey Holt, who was also a finalist. Joe Horn. I love Joe. Doesn't belong here.
Once lost me a championship for fantasy football back in the day. So
did he?
Yeah, he celebrated too early on a touchdown to put his arms out like this, and they knocked out of his hand. He fumbled at the 1-yard line. Had he just fallen down at the 1-yard line, I would have won, but he fumbled at the 1-yard line. So that was the end of that.
That's Joe Horn, yes. Andre Johnson. Excellent player.
Yeah, he's going to get in here shortly.
Yeah. Chad Johnson, who I don't think they like the Hall, that is.
Not
one hell of an exciting player, though. I think better than the Hall, or at least the people voting remember him as. But that's neither here nor there. And again, we're just looking at these just stud wide receivers who either one of us would be happy as our WR1 for a 5-year stretch. And how many of them have very little shot? Chad Johnson's one of them. Brandon Marshall is another one who I just don't see it. as good as he was.
Yeah, Brandon Marshall's a little too inconsistent probably to get in long term, but he was a heck of a wide receiver.
Mm-hmm. Derek Mason, another one
He
who
was incredibly consistent and still probably not going to make it.
yeah. Herman Moore, who was not there last year, very good on a real crappy Detroit team for a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love to imagine if he'd ever had a real quarterback to play with.
Or another distraction on the other side.
Yeah, something like that. I mean, he did have for part of his career at least not Bernie Sanders, Barry Sanders, very different. Bernie Sanders would not have helped. Barry Sanders for a little bit, but
no, probably not. I don't think Bernie could throw a good block.
Probably not.
Yeah. Musin Muhammad.
Mm-hmm. He's been here a couple times.
Yeah.
Another great receiver, a guy you'd love to have, but never at the top of the league.
Never the guy.
No.
Jordy Nelson. Again, a lot of Packer love here. But 72 touchdowns. That's pretty damn good.
Second year of eligibility. Rogers is buddy, but again, not in for me. I do have Donald Driver ahead of Jordy Nelson. So
I do too. Someone who was Mr. Excitement for a long time, but is always going to be best known for his house burning down, and that's Andre Rison.
Sadly, that is true. Yeah, very, very good player. Again, not a Hall of Famer.
No. Yeah, I mean that's pretty much how I remember him. Those three things: house burning down, being the well-dressed man in the Broke documentary, and everything else tied.
There.
Yeah. And we have three Smiths in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy, Rod, and Steve.
I mean, I think Steve has the best chance of these three. Rod Smith was a fantastic player. Probably at his time in his division, the second best player behind Tim Brown for half a decade or more.
I'd go with
player who I would have loved to have in my team at any point. And I just don't think he's going to have enough to get in ever. And Jimmy Smith, another great player, Jacksonville. I don't see it for either of them. It's just when we've talked about this before, we have such a backlog of wideouts.
And they didn't do anything to fix that.
Yeah, to fix it. We still got three who are legitimate contenders again this year. I think that one of them, we've already talked about, Andre Johnson, probably gets in. If not Torrey Holt.
But he's Andre's I think behind in the queue behind Torrey. And I'm just gonna overlook one person. I'm gonna come back to him. Reggie Wayne.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got Andre Johnson number 3 in the queue, I don't know if you've got Anquan number 4. I might not. I'm not sure. I think I actually have Hines Ward ahead. I know that you're not a fan of Hines Ward. I know that.
Every fiber of my being.
I know this.
He's I will put this out there. You guys have heard it from me before. Hines Ward is my least favorite player in NFL history. I won't say sports history because it's a guys, as people may or may not know, my first love of all the sports teams is the Bruins. I am a Bruins fan first behind everything else. I'm a Boston sports fan, but the Bruins have always been my first love. And Ulf Samuelsson can rot in the depths of hell for all I care.
No, I did not know that the Boston Bruins were your number 1 of everything.
Yeah, always have been.
I didn't know that.
So I always just absolutely loved hockey. I can never play it because I had childhood epilepsy and they wouldn't clear me. But Hines Ward and Bill Romanowski are the two players from the NFL. I can't stand them.
I have a feeling that the way this is so backlogged and with all the people who might be coming later and next, is it possible that Hines Ward could go 20 for 20 as a semifinalist and never be a finalist?
Yes, 100%.
And that's not. And I don't think you're agreeing with me because of a dislike for Hines Ward.
No, I agree. I think it's entirely possible he's never a finalist. Mm-hmm. I mean, if finally something working against him is all the Steelers in there too. So like, what, we're going to put another Steeler wide receiver in here? Although to be honest, you stack his career up against John Stallworth, Hines Ward's numbers are irrefutably better.
A different era.
I know, a completely different era, but they're so significantly better, and they're way better than Lynn Swann's too. Different era, but Lynn Swann was unlike any other wide receiver we've ever seen. So, yeah, I don't think Hines Ward is ever getting in. He is not my favorite. I will never vote for him.
Would that
So,
make him the first person? Okay, we won't know this for another 12, 14 years or whatever. If that happens, I think that would make Ward the first player to be a semifinalist on his first ballot.
and not get in.
I
It's
think,
very possible.
yeah.
I don't know.
Just to move it along, we've also got Wes Welker.
Another player who's higher in the page has a better chance to get the Hall of Fame for the Patriots as wide receiver than Julian Edelman. You can actually, if you look at the statistics that future football legends, future rock legends has branched out into football. Of all these players, Welker is like in terms of awards.
I wonder where they got that idea to do it. I wonder
I
where.
don't know. It's weird. But Wes Welker is way higher than you would think with awards and everything else on this. He's pitched significantly ahead of some people we think are better, like Anquan Boldin.
Right, but I mean, when we look at awards though too, there's a lot of suspect Pro Bowls as we move on. Pro Bowls.
I get it. And honestly, and Welker suffers from the most well-known play of his career as a pass that he couldn't catch and Gisele Bündchen got mad about. So, like that's the most well-known play of his career. So it doesn't work out in his favor. So anyway, tight ends. We only got 3. This shouldn't go fast.
Well, I mean, we have one person who could get in first ballot, and I think will, and that's Antonio Gates.
Yeah, I'd be shocked if he's even ever more than a second ballot. He should be first.
I think he will be. This obviously doesn't help the other two who are holdovers from last year, Ben Coates and Wesley Walls. You obviously more than myself, are big on Ben Coates, saying that not being the top tight end does not do him any favor to get it.
No, and the thing that I think may eventually come around for Coates, and I think it may happen with the senior committee, is there are only 2 tight ends on the 90s all decade squad, and they got one in and they don't have the other. And eventually people are just going to look at his highlights. Go look up Ben Coates' highlights. For people who don't know him, he was ridiculous. He was bruising and he was somehow like, he ran weirdly and was still somehow faster than everybody. I love Ben Coates.
Worked for Michael Johnson.
Yeah, it did work for Michael Johnson. But yeah, I love Ben Coates. Wesley Walls, you also were a long-time NFLer. But Gates will get in. Coates is someone I think could get in down the line. And then Wesley Walls. So, I mean, the 2 people on the 90s team are Tony Gonzalez and Ben Coates. Like, that's the list. So.
Yeah, but it's going to have to be sooner than later. Otherwise, then you go into that really murky senior pool.
Yeah,
but you never know. I mean, like Albert Lewis came out of nowhere.
Yeah, I don't see it. This isn't the year though with Ben. Like tight end is just.
I know, but let's say
like defensive back is one you could have 3 or 4 guys. Tight end is not one of those positions. Tight ends, kickers, returners. You're not going to get multiple of those guys at this point.
No, I'm just saying that could happen in the next 2 years.
I get it.
Where all of a sudden he gets elevated. I don't think a lot of people would have that much of a problem with it. I guess we'll get to the offensive lineman, someone who is getting a push, either justified or not, based on an unconfirmed stat, we'd like to say, and that's Willie Anderson. Willie Anderson has sort of claimed, or at least somebody claimed on his behalf, or that he only allowed, was it 16 sacks or 13, a very few amount of sacks over his career. Whether that's been verified or not, I don't know, but that pushed somebody who was on the fringe to a semifinalist and then a finalist last year.
Yeah. I have him getting in of my 25. I had him in my 4th year. I basically put an offensive lineman in every single year, and he was the 4th one I used from this list. He's probably getting in here in the next few years. So
probably there's definitely a queue that they respect mostly. Bruce Armstrong,
hell of a player, another sort of forgotten player. Actually, his biggest advocate, Bruce Armstrong, his biggest advocate's another Bruce Smith. who's repeatedly said that Armstrong is the best offensive lineman he ever went up against.
And another one who was conspicuously absent last year.
Correct. Yeah, I don't. Again, I know that we actually had people on our group who nominated Bledsoe, because you get people here by just nominating them, right? Anyone could just nominate. Bledsoe still doesn't show up. I don't get it. But Bruce Armstrong is very much deserving of being in consideration for this.
Very,
and unfortunately, retired in 2000, the year before the Patriots started winning. So didn't get that. Like, he stuck around one more season, could have gotten the. They won that Super Bowl walk off. That's the last thing that would have probably helped his thing, because we have someone at the end of this who is entirely helped by that. Oh, actually, they're not here yet. Sorry, I was looking at their list. Andrew Whitworth, when he comes up eventually, is definitely helped by his last walking off for that. So
there's a lot of players, or not a lot of players, but it's if I were to sort of like make an all-star team of just people who've made their Hall of Fame case after 30, Whitworth is on that.
Whitworth is on it. I agreed.
Yeah.
And then he won the Super Bowl, walked off, and then was the Peyton Man of the Year. So on the way out the door.
One hell 24-hour period, huh?
Not bad.
Yeah, not bad at all. And they closed with him too on that one.
They did.
That ceremony. They didn't this year. I don't know how they decide that, but whatever. Another good player, but he's not going to get there. And he'll tell you he's not going to get there because he's tweeted as much. And that's Matt Burke.
Smart man, went to Harvard. So
isn't he running for Congress or something?
I think so. Yeah, he and Fitzpatrick, the smart men from Harvard in the NFL. So,
oh, there you go. They can all hang out with Jeremy Lin.
Yeah, there you go.
Two Browns, both very deserving in their own way. Both probably won't get there. Lomas and Rubin.
Mm-hmm.
3 years ago, Rubin was not even a preliminary, despite having 9 Pro Bowls. I don't know how that happens, but it happened.
I mean, it's only 9 Pro Bowls. I'm sure, come on. Like, if you have, I know some Pro Bowls are, questionable, but if you get to 9.
Yeah, it's hard to put an asterisk on all 9, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, you can put an asterisk maybe up to 3 or 4, right? But 9 is its own sort of thing.
Like Sandy Alomar, I put an asterisk on all 6 of his All-Stars.
Okay.
Yeah. Someone I'm pretty big on, and for him being a semifinalist last year was a very nice surprise. That's Jari Evans.
Mm-hmm. But all decade team of the 2000s.
Yeah. Very, very good player. Big reason why the Saints won their first Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
It's and sadly only, but oh well. Kevin Glover, it's not going to happen for Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
Olin Kreutz, another guy I like a lot, but he'll probably also tell you he's not getting in.
Yeah, Olin is not shy. He's on the radio here a lot. Olin is a guy who I'd say the 2 people that they push for the most here now that Steve McMichael's at least gotten to the senior pool for the Bears are Olin Kreutz and Lance Briggs, who is coming up in linebackers. I don't think Olin's ever going to make it, but he is a exceptional candidate for it.
I agree.
And he's on the 2000s all-decade team as a center as well. So,
someone who's not is TJ Lang.
No
offense, Mr. Lang, but
I mean, not even the most famous Lang with initials for the first name. I would take KD Lang favorably over TJ.
I'll bet you KD could probably throw a mean block in her day.
I bet she could. KD Lang's kind of amazing. So anyway, continue.
Matt Light.
Remember the Patriots Hall of Fame, just like Bruce Armstrong. I don't think Light's getting in. He's not the Patriots offensive lineman. There will be one Patriots offensive lineman from the dynasty who will get in. I don't think it's Light.
Well, that person's coming up shortly. Nick Mangold, pretty good center in his day.
Maybe the second best athlete in his family, though.
Well, I wouldn't say that.
His sister is a heck of a power lifter. So
I think Nick Mangold had a better overall athletic career
That's
than
probably
Paulie.
true. I'm just saying.
No, but yes, Paulie Mangold is quite the physical specimen, and I'm not saying that sarcastically.
She's a very, very strong, powerful woman, and very impressive what she did with her career. So, anyway,
Yes.
this
Logan,
is the Patriot I think is getting in from this list.
yeah. Pardon, so far?
Of all the people on here, this is the only one who I think has a legitimate shot in the next 5 years of getting in. Is Logan Mankins.
Like, okay, Logan Mankins. Okay. I would agree with that, but he's got to get through that next semifinal list, and he hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of weird. He again, first team, first guard of the 2010 of the 2000s all decade team. So he's the number one guard of the 2000s all decade team.
Correct me if I'm wrong. Did it not take him a longer time than it probably should have to get into the Patriots Hall?
I there might have been. Hold on, let me pull the Patriots Hall. I don't remember exactly. It wasn't a ton of time.
Okay.
It may have been one extra year. I'll pull the Patriots Hall right now.
Okay.
I have
Or maybe
I have a spreadsheet. I know that's crazy.
Okay. No, not at all. That's why you're perfect for this show.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry. Mankins is an Indian.
Okay. Okay. So I wasn't.
He's in the Patriots Hall. So we have Will Fork. We had no vote his first year eligibility. Then Will Fork got in over him, and then Vrabel just got in his 7th year of eligibility. Okay. So he and Bill Parcells are the two people on the outside looking in. I'm presuming that Vrabel is probably going to be, or sorry, Mankins is probably going to be the choice next year. Light got in on his first opportunity over both Seymour and Vrabel, which is silly.
That's sort of where I'm going with this. We've seen this before. It's sort of hard for. It's not hard, but it's when a team doesn't always sort of do right by their own in their own way. Now, granted, this is a fan vote, and we do like the Patriots Hall of Fame very much. Saying that it does sort of keep you out of mind.
Agreed. And I when we were having that vote, I was online saying, guys, we all got to vote for Mankins, otherwise he's never getting in. And not enough people listen to me. So,
someone who one of our mutual friends is big on and made an amazing case for. That's Tom Nolan. He's here. A couple years ago, he was also not even a preliminary, despite having the Super Bowls, the Pro Bowls, the first team All Pros. Just a phenomenal center.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, I had that mixed up. Jari Evans is first. Logan Mankins is second for guards from the 2010s team, not the 2000s team. I screwed that up and backwards. So.
Okay, we also have Nate Newton.
We do have Nate Newton.
Yeah. Like him, but I don't see it. Same with Jeff Saturday. Is good, and he was.
Saturday is technically the highest. Saturday is technically the highest rated by Pro Football Reference of these folks, but I would take Nolan and probably Kreutz over Saturday. So.
Mark Schlereth, no chance. Sorry. Josh Sitton, another nice career, but first year
probably most famous for the blindside hit he had to take.
Yeah, I think you're right. Chris Snee, no.
Boston College kid.
There you go. Mark Stepnoski, very good player, very very good. Was not nominated. I think the last few years actually. It's been a while since he was.
Again, but he is on the 90s all-decade team as a second center behind Demonte Dawson. So they've inducted all of the offensive linemen from the 1990s team except for 3, and all 3 of them are here. We have Stepnoski is the first one we've gotten to. So
Dave Zott.
Good to see Dave Zott just because I loved his name.
Max Unger in his first year of eligibility, he's not gonna get in. Brian Waters, I liked him a lot.
Another former Patriot.
Richmond Webb, member of our committee. And when we say that, it's our United States Athletic Hall Committee. So obviously, Evan and I hold a bit of a fond spot for him. A lot of the people in our group were pretty big on Richmond. Apparently, the Hall is not. He's never been a semifinalist, and he's fallen behind in the queue for whatever reason.
Yeah, I have Webb in my second class that I put out of those five. Just because there's one other person we had to get in first, but Richmond Webb is immensely deserving. Not just because I had an actual conversation with him, but he is immensely deserving of being in the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Mhm.
So again, the tackles from the 1990s team, Willie Rofe is in, Gary Zimmerman's in, Tony Vaselli's in, Richmond's the only one left.
So then that leaves us with Eric Williams, who's not going to get in, and running out of time, Steve Wisniewski.
Yeah,
high
he's
starts.
yeah, so Wisniewski is was my first offensive lineman in. Just because he has less eligibility than Richmond. But
Yeah.
again, Bruce Matthews, Brandon McDaniel, Larry Allen, Wisniewski's the last one left there too. So.
And it's funny, like we talk about fan bases a lot, and fan bases will push things very well and sometimes not very well. The Raiders fan base is loud, but they're not loud for Steve.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting. I don't quite know why that is, other than it is. They seem to be pushing more. They're far bigger on pushing Jim Plunkett, who has no chance.
Mm-hmm.
And I get the two Super Bowls, but it's probably not going to happen. Steve Wisniewski, though, has a far better resume, but no Super Bowl, which might be why.
Well, that also comes down the same thing with going back to Logan Mankins. Mankins was drafted in after the 04 season, so the Patriots won their third out of 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
Played for them for a decade, was on that 07 team that didn't make it, 2011 team that didn't make it, and then left for Tampa, and then they immediately won the Super Bowl again. So he somehow managed to play 10 years for the Patriots without actually getting the Super Bowl.
Well, I guess I answered my own question there with that. I mean, it's like I always talk about Joe Carter. Was he the best Blue Jay ever? No. He's probably not even in the top 10, realistically, especially from a statistical lens. But Joe Carter hit the home run that won the World Series. That's it. Right. Game, set, match, over.
Yeah.
If someone wants to tell me that Joe Carter is the greatest Blue Jay that ever lived, I know why they're saying it, and I'm probably just going to shut my mouth on it.
I get it.
Yeah. Defensive linemen, so we'll go on that side of the ball. We're up from 14 to 20, and we got a lot of good ones here. Again, though, the queue is not going to help a lot of these people. John Abraham, just a phenomenal player.
Incredible player.
And he's going to be on the outside looking in, unfortunately, I think.
I believe that's probably the case with John Abraham.
Yeah. Of someone who's flashier ahead of him is Jared Allen.
Again, Jared Allen is, and we've said this, if anyone's followed this before, Jared Allen is not my cup of tea. I get that he has the sacks, but he's okay.
I personally, I've got the person next higher on my list, personally, Dwight Freeney.
Yes, I have Freeney higher than him as well.
Yeah.
I mean, let's go back. Those Colts teams that Manning had, and those defenses were generally mediocre at best. Freeney was the one. Freeney and Bob Sanders, and I guess to a certain extent, Robert Mathis, were the people you actually had to worry about. Everybody else was basically interchangeable.
Mm-hmm. Oh, excellent player. I never know how to, even though he was a Saint, because his first name always throws me off. Leroy Glover.
Yeah.
But it's the French in me. It's the King, Le Roi.
Yeah.
Very, very good player, but it's just going to be so hard.
Yeah.
Casey Hampton, another really good one. Robert Mathis.
We already talked about. Again, I think they were talking. This is Mathis's second year, I think, maybe third year. They were talking about how Mathis was a contender to get in on his first ballot.
No, he's not. Well, okay, so let's ask you this one here. So we've got Haloti Ngata, Ngata, who's now eligible for the first time.
Yeah.
He's
going to get in. I don't know if he's getting in the first ballot, though.
I would think they're going to put him behind in the queue behind Jared Allen. I don't think he's going to leapfrog.
They play different positions, though.
I know, but they're still in the same category for their purpose.
Maybe.
I don't know how they think. Well,
yeah, I don't know how they think either, because I mean, the best player on this whole list still hasn't been a semifinalist, and he's been here multiple years. So we'll continue in a second.
well, we got another real good one in Leslie O'Neal.
Yeah, Les O'Neal was phenomenal and has been largely forgotten in this whole process, which is really sad.
Julius Peppers. He's number one on my list right now.
First ballot getting.
I think he's going to be the only time I've ever been wrong. Well, when I thought DeMarcus Ware was going to get in first ballot.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was not shocked by that. I think I said at the time, are we positive DeMarcus Ware is getting in the first time? But I would be much more surprised if Peppers doesn't get in than I would be surprised if Gates doesn't get in. I think those are our two first ballot guys this time. I have Peppers higher than Gates.
Who would you think? Do you think it's possible that one of those two doesn't get in, and if so, who?
Gates.
Okay.
I think it's possible, just solely based off of positional value.
Okay.
Gates is probably the fourth or fifth best tight end of the last. I'd say fourth or fifth best tight end of the last 25 years. You have Gonzalez. You're gonna have Gonzalez, Gronkowski, Kelsey are going to be your top three. It depends on how you feel about Jason Witten. I'd put Gates ahead of Witten.
I do too.
And then Witten 5. I think those are the 5. But just because of the presence of Gronkowski and Kelsey, it may hurt Gates, even though they're not on the same ballot at the same time. But Gates is, like I said, Gates is awaiting more than 2 years. Peppers is getting it.
Okay. Simeon Rice, another good one, somehow squeaked in as a semifinalist, which surprised me.
His problem is there's already 4 Tampa Bay Buccaneer defenders from that 2002 team in. With Rondé getting in, we have Brooks, Lynch, Rondé, and Sapp. So, are they going to put a 5th person from that defense, even though Rice was integral in what they did?
Probably not.
I don't think so.
I don't either. It's going to be very, very difficult to see that happening. I think there are other fan bases, or just I shouldn't say fan bases, but I think there are other squads of other that sort of need some more representation.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah. Justin Smith. What a very good career.
Good player, short career.
Yeah. One of my favorites of all time, and who's never been a semifinalist. I don't know why, and it's Neil Smith.
Yeah, and Neil Smith has only got, so he stopped playing in 2000. So how many more years does that give him?
2 more after this.
Yeah, so Neil Smith is the last defensive end on the 90s All-Decade team who's not in. It's Bruce Smith, Reggie White, Chris Dolman, Neil Smith are your 4. Neil Smith deserves to have been under much more consideration much earlier. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely.
Will he ever get in the Hall of Fame? I don't know, but we shouldn't be having this one-time semifinalist in his 18th year of eligibility situation.
Right. And that's where we are. Another interesting player who was not nominated last year, and I say very interesting because he's a former MVP, or not MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Dana Stubblefield. I remember how good he was.
He was, but he just ended up having like attitude problems, and that's what people think of more than anything else.
That is true. That is true. Henry Thomas, not the actor from E.T.
Oh, what was the actor from Gangs of New York? It's the same Henry Thomas. It was a joke.
Is it? Okay, I don't know. I didn't know he did anything after that.
Yeah, he's Leonardo DiCaprio's best friend in Gangs of New York. Who sells DiCaprio's character out to I think it was the actual character, Dana Day-Lewis's character, so he has to shoot him and kill him. He's like, I can't believe you're making me do this. And he's like, you have to kill me. And so he kills him.
And then ET saved him.
And then ET saved him.
Either way, he's not getting in.
Ouch.
Just in touch.
Very important on some of those Giants teams. I don't think Justin Tuck's getting in.
Yeah, Ted Washington.
Another Patriot, former Bear, one of the great nose tackles of his time. He once was described by a teammate as being so wide that you could show a movie on the backside of his pants and not have to sit far from the screen, which Washington did not appreciate, but he's not getting in.
Your guy, Vince Wilfork.
Yeah, so here's the thing. So Vince is one of my guys. There's another one of my, even more of my guys, not for Patriots coming up. This is the thing. So Nada is up against Vince. Can we just skip to the other guy here too?
Yeah, the other guy, because we're not going to talk about him much, is Jamal Williams. So the
Jamal
other guy
Williams
is
but
Kevin Williams.
Kevin Williams, and then there's Pat Williams. We got 3 Williamses here.
Yeah.
Pat is a good player, but he's not getting in either. But those 3 are the cue now for nose tackle, right? The center of the line, the center of the 4-3 defense. It's Nada, Wilfork, and Williams. Williams is the best of those 3. Williams by position, according to Pro Football Reference, is the 8th best player nose tackle in the history of the NFL. Right? The only one who's ahead of him and not in the Hall of Fame is Aaron Donald, who you might remember still playing. Everyone else ahead of him is in, and then so the other 6 guys ahead of him are in. The 4 guys behind him are in. Kevin Williams can't even get on the semifinal list. I don't get it.
And also not just on Pro Football Reference, also the people who are voting. There's only one person on this group that's a 5-time first team All Pro.
Mm-hmm.
Not that they're all the same voter, but I mean,
obviously, and the Vikings led the league in rush defense 4 consecutive years with Williams in the middle of that line.
Yeah,
it's like they're the hardest team to rush on for essentially a decade in the entire league. And Kevin Williams was Kevin, and was the other Williams Wall? What's the other Williams? Mike?
Pat.
Or the other one? Oh, it was Pat.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. So Kevin and Pat Williams.
Yeah.
The Williams Wall was incredibly responsible for this. And I would like to point this out. What team did he play for?
Played for Minnesota.
The Vikings.
Yeah.
Do I give a crap about the Vikings?
You do not.
Why am I dying on this hill?
Because you do research and you believe in it. And
I believe in it. He needs to, at a minimum, get on the semifinalist list. No offense to Haloti Nada. But if Haloti Nada makes a semifinalist list and Kevin Williams doesn't, there's a problem. I think they both should be there, I'll be honest. Right? Wilfork has been on the semifinalist list at this point. But like Kevin Williams is the man. I think all 3 of those guys are Hall of Famers. I think Nada, Wilfork, and Williams are all Hall of Famers. We just got to get them up and over. And if Wilfork gets in first, okay, but Kevin Williams deserves it. And again, coming from a Patriots fan, Kevin Williams is my number 1 guy of the Snopes for the Hall.
Okay.
So back to line.
Yeah. So then, so I guess we go to the linebackers. Also, an increased number, going from 17 to 25.
I think the only place we went down was tight ends, right?
No, I think it's defensive backs.
Sorry, tight ends, defensive backs, and special teamers we went down a little bit. So anyway,
technically, special teams went up.
We went from 4 to 2 with special teamers, so we'll get there eventually. But let's start with linebackers.
Linebackers, Jesse Armstead.
Very good player, not getting in.
Brendan Ayanbadejo. I barely remember him.
Yeah, Brendan Ayanbadejo is a pretty good player. Mostly, I remember him with the Ravens, but he's not getting in either. Here's an interesting name to me, and someone else who I will pound the table for next. Cornelius Bennett.
Oh yeah, absolutely. One hell of a player. I'd say the best Buffalo Bill. Not in from that.
Yeah, I mean, so that defense, we've somehow reduced the Bills' 4 Super Bowl teams to Bruce Smith on defense.
Yeah, which anyone who watched that knows that that's certainly not the case. Bennett was a
Like,
very good player for a very long time. Uh, has
and
the stats
and was
conducive?
and was on that and was on that '98 Falcons team
Yeah,
that got Eugene Robinson into losing that Super Bowl. Eugene Robinson also upcoming, by the way.
yeah.
But Cornelius Bennett, Daryl Talley is another one who's long been forgotten at this point.
Sure.
Um,
And Bennett's never
Talley,
missed my finals either.
yeah, well, Talley fell off already, I think.
I
But
think so.
Bennett second team All Pro, second team All 1990s, along with a couple more of these guys. All three of those guys, I think, have very good arguments. So it's Junior Seau, Derek Thomas, Kevin Green, and then Bennett. Two other guys we're going to get to. All three of them, I think, have very good arguments to get in. So
Someone with a very potent career, but I don't think he's on their radar, even though it's very early. Navarro Bowman, very, very
yeah,
good.
very, very good. I don't think Navarro Bowman's ever getting in though.
Yeah, Lance Briggs that we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, everyone always says, well, Urlacher made Briggs better. Are we sure Briggs didn't make Urlacher's job better or easier? Briggs was an incredibly, incredibly good player.
very much so. Keith Brooking, I can't say that it's someone I forgot about. He's actually ranked pretty low on my core list, but he wasn't a nominee before. I don't believe. It was a preliminary.
He's been here before. I don't think he was here last year though.
No, he wasn't last year for sure. He wasn't.
And I've seen his name on this before. I'm pretty sure.
Teddy Bruschi,
Heart and soul of the Patriots, a guy who, if we're up to me and I can only put one player other than Brady from the Patriots teams that won the Super Bowls in there, I'd put Bruschi, but he's never going to make
yeah,
it.
well, again, just someone who had the benefit of a lot of exposure.
Yeah, but part of the reason the benefit of a lot of exposure is he made all the plays that got him the benefit of the exposure.
Was he ever? Would you ever consider him even close to the best defensive player on your team?
I mean, he's got to be there. I mean, we had Seymour and Ty Law, right? We have two Hall of Famers already from that defense. I think Rodney Harrison is someone who's got to get a lot of consideration as well.
Then there's Vince.
And there's Vince, but Vince comes a little later, more than Bruschi. I mean, Bruschi was there for the '96 Super Bowl.
Okay, so here's your homework then. Tell me if there was a like during their dynasty era, if there was a year that you would put him in the top three in defensive players
On our team?
on your team.
Oh yes, I'm sure the answer to that is several times. Is what I was trying to say. I mean, depending how you felt about some other players, I think Bruschi was often the number.
I go with your opinion on this far more than mine because you're the Patriots guy. So
yeah, I mean, the problem was he's in linebacker up against in the era of Derek Brooks, Ray Lewis, and Brian Urlacher.
right.
So like, how many first team All Pros are you gonna get? Even though he has the Super Bowl wins he has as many Super Bowl wins as Brooks and Lewis combined.
There you go. So Carlos Dansby, pretty good with Arizona, but it's not going to happen. Donnie Edwards, no. James Ferrier,
very good player,
but it's not going to happen. London Fletcher, if you're going to go look at pure numbers of tackles, there you go. But they haven't.
They have not. But it's gonna be interesting because I guarantee you when Keachley comes up next year, it's the first thing they're gonna talk about. Or is Keachley? Yeah, Keachley's next year. That's the first thing they're talking about is how many tackles he made. You're like, so why does that not work for London Fletcher? They have as many Super Bowl victories.
All right, but was London Fletcher ever considered? Wait a minute, didn't London Fletcher win one with the Rams?
Was he on the Rams team that won one?
I believe so. That was his first team.
I'll double check. In which case I'm wrong.
I think London Fletcher's got a Super Bowl ring with the Greatest Show on Turf team because he started off as a Ram, and that was
he did. Hold on, interwebs are working. Yep, he was on the team that defeated the Tennessee Titans. There you go. Good for you. So he has more than Keachley. That's not going to help him though.
No. Former MVP or Defensive Player of the Year. Why do I keep saying that? James Harrison.
Yeah, James Harrison's somebody I have under consideration too. Another former Patriot. You don't think of him that way. But um, he and Shaq, when he went to the Celtics, were players that their normal team said, "We'll never root for him again," and then he retired and everybody was fine with it. But I have him as a serious candidate going forward, long term. So
Larry Izzo, we already joked that that's
played for the Patriots, not better than Drew Bledsoe.
okay.
So
Well, let's just pass and go to Willie McGinnis, who is better than Larry Izzo.
yeah, so this is going to be the other person on those defenses. So McGinnis kind of was the first person what they call the elephant position. So kind of a pass rusher slash cover lineman slash defensive end slash linebacker slash everything. McGinnis probably deserves more love than he gets. I think he has a much better chance of getting in the Brewski. That said, I don't think he's ever getting in, sadly.
If Simeon Rice isn't the next Buccaneer, this is the guy who could be. And
Hardy Nickerson is insanely underrated, like incredibly underrated.
Oh, not in my household. I know what he can do. I know it all too well. Oh, those Tampa teams.
Yeah, so Hardy Nickerson again is wait, Levon Kirkland wasn't here, was he?
He was not.
So all right. So the other three linebackers from the all-90s team are Hardy Nickerson, Cornelius Bennett, and Levon Kirkland. So you're going to tell me that a guy who is an all-decade performer doesn't deserve to even be nominated?
Well, he's no Izzo.
That's one of the things I don't get. So here's, if I could change one thing about the Pro Football Hall of Fame, this would be it. Anyone who has played at least 5 seasons and has a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro automatically makes the list. However many people that is, they just automatically make the list to go down. We don't have to do the stupid nomination thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can go from there. But it's irresponsible of us to be even considering Larry Izzo, again, former Patriot, heck of a special teamer, not a real linebacker, and not have Levon Kirkland here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I'd have to agree with a lot of that.
I mean, Kirkland's got 3 years left.
Yeah,
and he's done.
Another one who I just remember seeing a lot of, but was not nominated. I don't remember the last time he was ever a preliminary. It's Ken Norton Jr.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've even seen his name. I was like, oh yeah, he's a heck of a player too.
Yeah,
Ken Norton Jr. is never getting in.
No, neither is Bryce Pop, even though he was a former Defensive Player of the Year. But again, we have them adding 2 former Defensive Players of the Year, and Pop and Stubblefield, who is not considered last year. Okay,
yeah,
that makes sense. Julian Peterson, very good player, but Joey Porter, he was really good.
Another member of the All-Decade team,
and was not nominated last year.
Was not nominated last year because nothing makes freaking sense. The last remaining linebacker of the 2000s team who isn't in. So Derek Brooks, Ray Lewis, Ryan Orlock are your top 3. Joey Porter was your number 4 ranked linebacker from the decade.
Yep.
5 is Zach Thomas, who got in last year. 6 is Demarcus Ware, who also got in last year. Mm-hmm. So 5 and 6 are in, and why is Joey Porter just not getting anywhere?
I don't know. There's no answer for it. I mean,
okay, so and I don't really particularly like Joey Porter, just by the way. Not one of my favorites.
I know it's a Pittsburgh thing. I get that, but
it's a Pittsburgh and a Miami thing. But right. But Joey Porter deserves way more consideration than he's getting.
Yeah, Joey Porter
at least deserves as much as Hines Ward.
Yeah, so but think of this here. So here's someone who's a returnee, who's again pretty good, but he's not at that level. That's Takeo Spikes.
Takeo Spikes is the poster boy for if you don't want to make the playoffs, you have Takeo Spikes on your team. It's a terrible legacy. I think he played more games than anyone who never qualified for the playoffs.
That's all. I did not know.
I'll double check that. Did Takeo Spikes ever make the playoffs?
Well, so while you're doing that, I'll just go on a mini rant of the next person. Another person who was not nominated last year, another tackling machine, another person who's actually only associated with one team because he only ever played for one team. A very, very, very good player, and that's Jesse Tuggle.
Yeah, Justin Tuggle is a heck of a player. Another person who needs more consideration than he's getting.
Yeah.
Just by the way, I am correct. Takeo Spikes played the Eagles, Chargers, and 49ers, and all of whom made the playoffs a year after he left. So he had played 219 regular season games and never made a playoff appearance.
But he's obviously they consider him more than a few other defensive players of the year.
Right. But yeah, 200. I mean, Takeo Spike's a hell of a player. Don't get me wrong. It's an amazing record to play as long as he did and never see a playoff game.
No, we're just calling it the way we see it.
Yeah.
Mike Vrabel.
Got into the Patriots Hall of Fame this year. I think Vrabel may get in very well as a coach eventually. He's a very good coach.
I think that's his better path of entry, or more likely.
Yeah, I agree with that. Also has more catches than the rest of these guys combined. So, Mike Vrabel, there's a trivia question for you. Who has the highest percentage of catches in their career that went for touchdown in the history of football?
Isn't it Mike Vrabel?
Yeah, he's eight catches his career. All 8 were touchdowns.
Yeah, this came up. I think you told me this before.
Yeah.
One of my favorite guys here, Patrick Willis. Short career, but he dominated every year he was in, except for maybe his last one. Finalist before, somehow Bryant Young eclipsed him. I don't know how.
Yeah, I don't get that either. Patrick Willis is a Hall of Famer. He will be in eventually. I had him when we did our thing. I got to year 2 and I had 2 ones I was trying to determine between, but one of them was Patrick Willis against Keechley in his first year. And I looked at them like their careers are eerily similar. Those 2 guys both played 7 years, both 5 times first team, 2 times second team, both like everything was almost exactly the same. And I ended up with Willis respecting the Q first over Keechley for that. I did not do that actually when we get to the safeties coming up here. But
all right, so we only have 2 left. Al Wilson, a returner, and we're returning from last year. Lee Woodall, who
Al Wilson, very good player, is never getting in. Lee Woodall also played football.
All right, so we'll go with the defensive backs here, and this is the only one that went down significant. Well, 17 from 19 last year. So I guess it starts off with Eric Allen, former semifinalist, but again, it's just so hard.
Agreed.
Dre Bly.
Very good player, but not getting in. Very super fast player, Dre Bly.
Yeah, another person I liked a lot watching him, but I just don't see it, and that's Cam Chancellor. Some really good years with the Seahawks. But
yeah,
it's just too tough. Nick Collins, with all due respect, does not belong here. But he's back.
Agreed.
Yeah. Antonio Cromartie.
Yep.
Like a lot of these people just don't feel like they belong.
Yeah, Antonio Cromartie is more famous for not knowing what contraception is than anything else.
That's probably
honestly.
True. Yeah. Merton Hanks, Super Bowl champion.
Yes. Yep. Very good player for those 49ers teams. He has never had any real traction.
Rodney Harrison, who has gotten some love.
Yeah, he is my guy. Another one who I think deserves it. Again, one thing working against him more than anything is he has 1 Pro Bowl in his entire career. And Brandon Merriweather. I said, here's what you need to know about the Pro Bowl. Brandon Merriweather has 2, and Rodney Harrison has 1. Rodney Harrison was the 2nd or 3rd most important person on those Chargers teams. Seau and Leslie O'Neal and Rodney each sort of had their own things there. On the Patriots team, coming in, and we don't win the 2nd or 3rd Super Bowls without Rodney Harrison. I always wonder if he had just knocked that ball into David Tyree's hands in the 2007. Like he had his hand on it, just could not get it out of there. If he knocks that out, is he honestly in already? Because he has his signature play, saving a Super Bowl that way. I don't know what it's going to take for him to get in. It's going to be a tough road here because coming up in the next couple of years, we'll have Eric Berry, and then we'll have the guy from the Seahawks,
Wagner.
Earl Thomas.
Well, Thomas.
Earl Thomas.
Oh, yeah,
It's going to be a tough road for him to get in, but I really wish he gets there.
Carnell Lake, who was not nominated last year, should have been.
Yes, the whole system. I have to say, the rest of the system is fantastic. The nomination system is dumb.
Tim McDonald.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us consider like really sneaky good. I think there's.
Sorry, just by the way, Carnell Lake is the last remaining defensive back from the 1990s team not in. So it's Deion Sanders, Rod Woodson, Daryl Green, and Aeneas Williams. All the cornerbacks are in. Then the safeties are Atwater, Butler, and Ronnie Lott. He actually got more votes than Lott did. So Carnell Lake would be is the only member of the defensive backs in the 90s not in. So
Eugene Robinson.
Mr. Congeniality.
There you go. Let's move on. Samari Roll. No. Alan Rossum.
Yeah.
Returner.
Yeah. Is Alan Rossum the worst player last year? Yeah. Alan Rossum's career points, by the way, for the system they have is 9.58, which made him, as of last year, the 853rd best defensive back in the history of the league. So I'm not quite sure what that means since he's mostly kick returner, but I think you need to be more than 853rd at your nominal position in order to get there. Although
special teams category, I don't know why they can't do that.
Yeah,
I mean,
they're going to need to. Matthew Slater probably as a wide receiver is way down there as well. Although he has a whole bunch of Pro Bowls to his name, so that will help him.
Well, you talked about.
I brought up Bob Sanders.
Yeah, another very good player. Charles Tillman, who gets a lot of love.
Well, here, let me just go back to Bob Sanders a second.
Sure.
As an opponent of his, there's a time in which it was a Ed Reed, Troy Polamalu, Bob Sanders, who's the best defense safety in the league situation, and then Sanders got hurt quite a bit. Sanders is a better candidate than he's probably ever going to get credit for. And again, I'm saying something nice about a Colt. But he's probably a lot better candidate than he's going to get credit for. I don't think he'll ever get in, but I think Bob Sanders needs recognition for how good a player he really was.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. And there's something to be said about when you're in that conversation for the best of your position. And a lot of these players that we've talked about, as much as we're praising them, were not that.
But again, you know what it ends up being, in a little different way, ends up being the Jeter, A-Rod, Nomar conversation, where Nomar gets injured and then he just falls off, right? Bob Sanders is the Nomar in the situation, and he's not going to make it because of that.
Yeah.
No one's the A-Rod in this situation. A-Rod, of course, cheated a lot. So
once or twice.
Yeah.
Twice for sure.
And I will say this: of all the players I've ever watched on other teams, there's no player in the league I've ever wanted to play for me more than Ed Reed. God, I wanted Ed Reed on my team so badly. That man was incredible.
Yes, he was.
Sorry, I'm taking us off track, but every time I think about Ed Reed, it makes me happy.
No, it's perfectly fine. Let's see, Charles. Peanut Tillman, inventor of the peanut punch.
Peanut Tillman, who is important to note, is an FBI agent, but did not raid the Bears facility this last week. That was the rumor that was going around yesterday. The peanut punch we talked about. It's Jack Silverstein's thing about, we talk about interceptions, but Tillman forced more fumbles than anyone in league history, correct?
I don't know if they're really sure about that because they have to go back, because forced fumbles didn't become a stat till.
Okay, but since they've been keeping track, Tillman has forced more fumbles than anybody else. And shouldn't that matter?
I would think.
You would think. Why do interceptions matter so much more than forced fumbles?
It's sexier.
Again, it's sexier, but if the turnover is a turnover, it's a weird thing. So Tillman is an interesting candidate. So
Troy Vincent,
hurt by his time with the NFL. not trusted by a lot of people.
Antoine Winfield.
Excellent player, not getting in.
Yep. And someone who is on the radar, Darren Woodson.
Yeah, excellent player, probably getting in eventually. I don't think next couple years, but he's going to get to the point. He's going to be his last year of eligibility. Like, be like he's been a semifinalist, a finalist X number of times. You got to put Darren Woodson in.
Okay, just for the interest of time, because I think most people aren't that interested in the special teams players. I know that I'm not that keen on a lot of them because I don't think most of them have a shot. But the place kickers, we have 2 more than last year, so we have 7. One person who was not nominated last year, obviously should have been, if you're going to have a kicker, there is David Akers.
Yeah, they got rid of Longwell and replaced him with Akers on this list. I don't know what Ryan Longwell did wrong. Yeah, Akers is a very good player. I mean, there's only one person on this whole list has a shot at getting in. You can just kind of run through them.
Yeah, and that's Gary Anderson. Gary Anderson, but he is again his biggest thing is he's not remembered for all the kicks he made. He's remembered for the one he missed.
The one he missed. Yeah. That 15-1 Vikings team.
Yep. Jason Elam, Jason Hansen, John Cassay, Matt Stover, who's new, and Mike Vanderjagt. Yeah, I'm sure Peyton loves that one.
Yeah, Vanderjagt, best known for being a liquored up kicker. Casey, most known for probably having the kick that sealed the Panthers losing the Super Bowl to the Patriots. Mm-hmm. So none of those guys are getting in. And we have one punter, I think, has a shot too. So you want to go through those guys?
One punter and another one who I think you could make a small case for.
Yeah.
So the punters are Darren Bennett, Jeff Beagles, Sean Lindetta, who's the one I think you can make a possible case for, but you can't even say that unless it's Shane Leckler, who is the person you're referring to, who Correct. Is Ray Guy's the most important punter of all time, but I think Shane Leckler is the best.
Yeah, agreed.
Brad Maynard, Pat McAfee, Brian Moorman, Matt Turk.
I think McAfee will announce that he gets in even if it's not true. So, yeah, I mean, the only word we're talking about, Leckler, Lindetta, okay, Fiegels, you want to maybe talk about, but those guys aren't getting in. It's too hard for a punter to get in. Leckler's the only one who's worthwhile having even a conversation about.
And special teams, we just have 2, Josh Cribbs and Brian Mitchell. Brian
Mitchell still 3rd all-time in career total yards in the history of the NFL, and that means absolutely nothing.
Right. So there we go. It's been interesting. I'm not really I'll tell you this much. Evan and I, we created, and if you want to be part of this, let us know, the Pro Football Hall of Fame Revisited project. And I'll tell you that right now, I am not going to have anything where there's going to be 173 nominees. I'm just not doing it. I don't have the time for it.
Get it.
I can't. I can't.
I get it. But again, you don't need to have the Larry Izzos of the world here. You don't need to have the Glenn Milburns of the world or the Allen Rossers. Like they have 0% chance. Why are we even talking?
Well, that's sort of the thing. I think we're going to create a subcommittee also. You, myself, Jack, probably Brian and Pierce. They're the most active people in terms of conversations on this, where we're just going to set some rules moving forward. I'd like to sort of present maybe if someone gets 0 votes in the prelim for the first 5 years.
Just dump them.
Just dump them completely. But you never know. As just doing this, because we started this as if it was 1946, we're 1949 now. There are players who, like when we first began this, if there's any one trend that I'm seeing, I see that a lot of people are looking at time of eligibility.
Correct. We have people popping up in their second or third to last, or first, second, or third to last years. All of a sudden, get a lot more consideration. But again, like I told you, we were talking about this with the seniors and people on the senior list. At the beginning of this, people who were in year 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, they're up against so many Hall of Famers we have to get through. They're not even really getting looked at. Like the people in the back end. If you get people who are in year 10, when we started this back in 46, they're going to have a real chance. But the people in the back end, they're up against Curly Lambeau and Jim Thorpe and now Bronco Nagurski's there for the first time. They're just not getting the consideration just because there's so many existing Hall of Famers on that list.
Yeah, like for our 49 thing, 4 actual Hall of Famers entered. in their first year of eligibility.
Yeah. And two of whom should, in my opinion, be first ballot Hall of Famers. I mean, Bronco Nagurski and I think Dan Fortman. There's no argument you can make against Dan Fortman. There are arguments you might be able to make against the other two. Tuffy Lehman's maybe, and I can't remember the other ones off the top of my head. But Fortman and Nagurski are first ballot guys. So
yeah. So thank you for sitting through all of that, gang.
yeah, it's a long time.
I'm gonna just kick through to the elevator.
No, go ahead.
All right. So
elevator up, elevator down.
Elevator up, elevator down. That's sort of where I look at the past week and say, okay, who's made a Hall of Fame case and who hasn't? And in theory, I've got a giant elevator up, but it's mostly just a whole group of people. And I don't know if you were going to talk about this or not, but we have to talk about this in some capacity. I can't help but laugh about this. I shouldn't take delight in it, but I do. Kicked out of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame board of directors.
Oh, yes.
Is John Wenner. Were you going to talk about that or?
No, because I knew you were going to bring it up, so I figured that's where we're
okay. Yeah, so for those who were unaware, John Wenner is pretty much the guy. He was the co-founder of the Rock Hall, but really the brains behind it. It was his baby. He was responsible.
Wait, time out. Are we the Jan Wenner of this hall?
Yeah.
No, because we're not using. I mean, there's minimal personal biases in this, so no.
Well, there's personal bias, but we keep him at the door.
Yeah, there's personal bias, but we're not keeping women and minorities out. So continue.
That's the funny thing is he kind of was that guy who was presented himself as a progressive. Mm-hmm. It was on his watch that he did something that, while I sort of agree with it in one way, that was when he didn't fudge the vote, but that was when Grandmaster Flash finished behind the Dave Clark 5. And so we switched it.
Yeah, Fox News was very, very upset about that.
Were they? Like legit?
Very, very much so. Yeah, it was like a talking point for like a week.
Okay, I didn't know that. Now, while I can agree with Wenner that I think that it was more important that Grandmaster Flash do belong more than the Dave Clark 5, and I get his point that he thought it was very important for a rap group to get in there early because that would have been the first. They were the first. Then what do you have a voting body for if you're just going to ignore what they say?
Well, I mean, he did that all the time. That was the whole thing. I mean, that was. I'm sure that was not the first nor the last time they did that.
Right, and he did say that he would do everything he could to keep Kiss out.
Was that him?
He said, like, what did he say once? As long as I've got anything to say about it, they'll remain out.
Yeah, and then that's right, because then he stepped down from whatever, and then the Kiss got in that immediately.
I think they still got it. They got in before. He did that but I think Tom Morello was pushing really hard for them, and they're on the ballot, and I think that was just one of those bands where love them or hate them, you can't deny their impact.
Of course, but there are a lot of things like that. You can't deny their impact, and they've denied it.
But what happened, for those unaware, Wenner did an interview with New York Times promoting a book that he wrote, I guess where he's profiling his friends. I don't quite know
profiling who he thinks is the true people of rock and roll, and shockingly, they're all white men.
Okay, and I can believe that maybe that's what he thinks, and maybe he didn't think of it that way, but then maybe not, because when asked about that,
it was asked about it in the interview. Go ahead.
So he said, I'm going to paraphrase here, but well, the woman I was talking to just weren't that interesting.
Yeah.
And well, in retrospect, so that I could have, so that I look more politically correct. And I'm getting the words a little jumbled, but this is essentially what he said. That so I look more politically correct. I probably should have.
Mm-hmm. Huh. And they did it. What did he say about African American artists?
Isn't that kind of what he said, or was there something else I missed?
Oh, it was. Well, he had women first, and then he had African American artists as well, right?
Yeah, but he said like that. Then in retrospect, I probably should have, so that it looked more PC. Okay. You're talking to the New York Times. Do you not think that, because you know which way they skew, you not think that they're going to find this? And if they do, you've dealt with the media all your life. This was the best you could come up with?
Mm-hmm.
You fucking moron. I don't know what more to say about this. I've never seen a more tone deaf reaction or just something where he felt entitled. Okay, well, I'm going to get away with it. You know, they're not going to print that. Of course, they're going to print it. They love digging that shit up.
Yep.
The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, they said, okay, and it wasn't even, it was just the most concise, to the point, F you, Jan Winter is no longer with us.
Yeah.
Done. Out. So who's my elevator up?
Women and minorities.
Tracy Chapman, who I've talked about before. They don't want to seem like they're racist. They try very hard to come off like they're not. They keep doing all their women in rock exhibits, this, that, the other thing. Again, I've said this before. It's pretty hard.
Mary Wells.
Mary Wells is one. That'd be a really good one. So I think
one of the original ones they had on the first list, and she's still out there. So
I think you're going to see a ballot even more diverse than you've ever seen before. Should it be? Okay, let's see what they come up with, and then we'll decide from there, right? So that's pretty much my elevator up. If you are female, and especially if you're non-white female, there's a couple more spots that may not have been they may not have been on the ballot before this. I think that's very, very possible that they're going to do this.
Maybe. I mean, hey, they still somehow managed to leave the Spinners off of all of their promotional things until they were yelled at. So,
Yeah.
So they're still not perfect. But
I never said they were close to being perfect.
They're not close to perfect.
But that is something that I could see them doing. As for Winter, never been a fan of him. You're not either, I'm sure.
Long time coming.
It kind of is, and I don't know how you can be that tone deaf. And if that is really how you think, I guess it is. You said it.
Yep. So
you not know to keep that to yourself.
Yeah.
Or maybe when you've been around that long, you feel that untouchable.
Yeah, I mean that's probably more than anything. So
who knows what other shit he said, and they were that quick to get rid of him.
Yeah,
I think they're pretty happy about it. So, but yeah, that's pretty much my elevator up, elevator down.
Cool.
I guess, go ahead.
Yeah, say cool. Do we should go the death march?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to start with wrestling. Did you know an Emile Dupree?
Not. I know that he was a promoter in the Maritimes. I think he was a wrestler for a long period of time, but I never saw him.
Okay, so I don't know anything about him, but I put him on here because you're the wrestling guy. He passed away at the age of 86. From the NHL, Henry Boucher, spelled Boucha, played for the Red Wings, North Stars, the Kansas City Scouts, and Colorado Rockies from 71 to 77. He passed away at the age of 72. Former U.S. Olympian in the pentathlon 1972 Olympics in Munich, Scott Taylor, passed away at the age of 78. From baseball, former reliever Rorik Harrison. Do you remember him? Played the Orioles, Braves, Indians, and Twins. It was all before I was born, but it would have been about the time you were probably starting to watch baseball. Yeah, but he passed away at the age of 76. The coach of Dartmouth's football team, Buddy Tevens, was killed riding his bicycle.
Yeah.
Riding his bicycle, and someone collided with him back in March. He ended up dying from complications of the accident and 6 months later here. He was riding his bicycle in Florida. Ford F-150 hit him, his spinal cord was injured and he lost his right leg in the accident and died of it at the age of 66 here or on the 19th. So yeah, he was 66 years old. Hubert Ginn, a member of the two-time Super Bowl champion with the Dolphins, and a member of that 72 team. Backup running back, mostly passed away at the age of 76. Also played with the Baltimore Colts and Oakland Raiders. He hated the Dolphins originally because they weren't letting him run because they had a guy named Larry Zonka. So they traded him to the Colts. Were like, we'll give you an opportunity. And he got fewer runs with the Colts as he went back to the Dolphins before finishing his career at the Raiders. Everyone else I have is from music.
Okay.
So to start with Roger Whittaker, a British songwriter, had a ton of hits over in England mostly, but he had quite a few here in the US, including, hold on, let me pull this one up. It was the biggest US hit, a number one hit with The Last Farewell in 1975, which was, or sorry, the re-entry. It's a re-recording of his 1971 song, Last Farewell. It was number one in the adult contemporary charts back in 1975. He passed away at the age of...
Would have been in the 90s or something, this guy.
87.
Yeah, okay. My parents had an 8-track of the best of Roger Whittaker. That was
there you go.
11 8-tracks I heard over and over and over again in that 1977 Grand Prix.
Wow. So you are very familiar with Roger Whittaker.
I am very, yes, he would whistle in almost every song.
Oh, that I didn't know. I was not as familiar with him. So also passing away, one of the great musicians from Native American music, flute player, actually, Robert Tricotti, toured throughout the Americas, Europe, and East Asia, played wooden flute, actually played with the Rippingtons for a while, but he passed away at the age of 72. I actually, believe it or not, remember him when I was a kid. He was on Reading Rainbow, and I thought what he did was really freaking cool. So I remembered him.
I saw that show.
Yeah. So Prudence McIntyre of the 50s sister group Patience and Prudence, the younger of the siblings, she passed away at the age of, she's born in 45. So what does that make her? 78. But they had 2 hits in the 1956. Gonna Get Along Without You Now and Tonight You Belong to Me. I don't remember either of them particularly, but she was 78 years old. From 702, Irish Grinstead died. Do you remember Irish Grinstead in 702?
Sounds familiar, but I don't think I could pick up any.
So our R&B group, Irish was only 43 when she passed.
Oh, okay. No, that's not what I'm thinking.
Yeah. It said she died of a long battle with an undisclosed illness. She was only 43 years old. Drummer John Marshall passed away. Played with J.J. Jackson, and actually probably best known for his work with the Soft Machine. But he passed away at the age of 82. Also played with Nucleus, that was his main band, before moving on to the Soft Machine, and he played with a whole bunch of Centipede, among others. Another drummer who passed away, Kent Stax. Now I'm bringing up Kent Stax. He was with a band called Scream from Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia. So he was the second drummer of Scream. Here's your trivia question. Another trivia question.
I don't know.
He was the second drummer of the band Scream. He left the band in what year would this have been? He left the band in 1986. What drummer replaced him in the band Scream from Bailey's Crossroads, Virginia? I'll give you a hint. The drummer lied about his age to get in the band because he was too young to tour.
Tommy Lee? No, it can't be.
Dave Grohl.
Wow. Okay.
So Dave Grohl was only 17, and when Kent Stax left, Scream was Dave Grohl's first band that he was in. But Kent Stax passed away at the age of 61 of cancer. From the Screaming Jets, which is a very, very well-known band in Australia. If you ever know any Australians, they all love the Screaming Jets. But Paul Wosen, who was their longtime, the only original member who made it all the way through, passed away. The drummer passed away at only the age of 56. They've had so many people in that band, but Wosen was the only one Wosen, excuse me, was the only one who's been there since the beginning, and he was 56 years old.
It was a Spinal Tap. It's a bad week for drummers.
Yeah, it was. So I also want to bring up another drummer, Fred Lewis, from the band Lakeside. You remember Lakeside's big hit in 1980?
Is it
You're right
Fantastic
there.
Voyage, or am I
That's
thinking-
Fantastic Voyage. Very good. Come along and ride with me. Fantastic. And then, of course, was sampled later for Fantastic Voyage by why can't I think who did that one? The second Fantastic Voyage.
Coolio?
Was it Coolio? It might have been Coolio.
Oh.
Yeah, Coolio. But yeah, so the drummer from that, Fred Lewis, passed away at the age of 72. Real bad week for drummers. And I'd say the biggest name we lost this week at the age of 79. It's amazing to me that she was only 79. Member of the Marvelettes, Catherine Anderson, passed away at the age of 79. I mean, the Marvelettes are one of those bands who I can't remember. Are they in the Rock Hall or not? I should know this, but it's late at night. I don't think they are. They've been nominated. Yeah, they were nominated in 2013, but they've never actually got it in.
Okay.
Maybe hold on, let me double check that. This is one of those things I would know if it weren't 11:30 at night right now.
Yeah, while we're recording this, yeah. It's one of those ones that feels like they should.
Yeah, they're the ones who sing "Please, Mr. Postman." Hold on a second.
I'm looking it up here too. Let's see.
Yeah. So they're nominated in 2013. That much I know. Fine.
Awards and recognition.
2013, 2015. Yeah, they've been nominated twice and aren't in.
Yeah, not in. Yeah. I got
Yeah, so 2013, 2015. Of course, Please, Mr. Postman, Don't Mess Around with Bill. They're a member of the Vocal Group Hall of Fame, member of the Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, but they're not a member of the Rock Hall. But yeah, so one of the original members.
Well, maybe they're an elevator up too.
Yeah, there you go, probably. But yeah, so Catherine Anderson passed away at the age of 79. So that's all I got for that.
Okay. Do you have a good, bad, and ugly for the week?
I do.
Okay.
So we're gonna start with the bad. So what is it we doing? Wah wah wah.
Okay.
The bad is whatever the hell is going on with the Bears this week. I don't understand what's going on with the Bears. But you said that there's a very terse statement about Jan Wenner leaving the Rock Hall.
Yep.
Like Alan Williams, the defensive coordinator of the Bears, left for health reasons. And I think health reasons is doing a lot of heavy lifting here. There's rumors that there was pedophilia found on his computer. Who knows? We don't know if that's true or not. There were rumors that the FBI raided Hallis Hall, which we know is not true. And Peanut Tillman was involved somehow because he's in the FBI and played for the Bears. I don't know. But every statement was, the Bears statement was like, Alan Williams has left for his health. We thank him for his service. Like essentially that. And everyone, like the questions are being asked are like, hey, like they asked the special teams coordinator, hey, you worked with him on several staffs. Must have been a friend of yours. How you doing? And he goes like, I understand why you're asking the question, but we're focused on the Chiefs. Like, I don't know what this guy did. And for someone who has health issues, not a single person wished him well with the health issues. So some massive thing that's going to be coming out here, which is why it's only bad now, because I don't get what's going on. But it's really freaking weird.
It obviously can't be good.
No. And at the same time, you have the quarterback saying that, what this problem is because it could be coaching, but it's probably, me, whatever. And then the reporter, Dan Wiederer, runs with, he blames it on coaching, which was seen 4.1 million times. And Wiederer responds with, he blames on coaching and other stuff. But it's just a circus around this team. They've completely turned on Justin Fields, which sucks for Fields. But I don't know. This whole team is falling apart. Their last win was against the Patriots. And it was so long ago, Elon Musk didn't own Twitter at that point. And being a Patriots fan here in Chicago, one of my coworkers got me a Bears tumbler and puffy painted Evans Victory Cup and the Bears and Patriots score on this thing. And they haven't won since. And now everybody wants to take it from me and destroy it so that they'll win. I'm like, let's at least wait until after the Kansas City game, because you're not going to win in Kansas City. So let's wait until after that game to destroy it. Let's not waste the mojo for this. But the Bears are a mess, and I don't know what's going on.
Okay, that's a very good bad.
Yeah, I also say the New England Revolution are in the same sort of situation. My other team, Bruce Arena, got fired for saying something. I don't know what it is. They were going to replace him with the guy who allegedly knocked him out. They decided against that, and now the team's kind of in an uproar, and I don't get what's going on with them either. But I have so much less information on that because it's harder to get MLS information than NFL information. But I should mention they're also bad at the moment, except for the fact that the Revolution are the second best team in MLS right now, and the Bears have not won since October 24th. Why do I know it's October 24th? Because it says so on the freaking Tumblr. Anyway, in puffy paint.
Sorry.
All right, the ugly. Stephen A. Smith. So Stephen A. went on a whole rant a couple days ago about how Ohtani doesn't deserve money because he doesn't put butts in seats. And they've never won anything with him. As if, baseball's a one-person game. He's Bugs Bunny out there pitching, catching, and fielding everything. He's already Bugs Bunny as close as anyone. He's pitching and hitting, right? Mm-hmm. And fielding when he's not pitching. And that he didn't deserve the money, and he was called out on it. Dude, did you even look this up beforehand? And he basically said yesterday to tell all the baseball people to shut the fuck up because nobody cares about baseball, and that's why ESPN doesn't cover it. Okay? So today, Stephen A. Smith threw out the first pitch before the Yankees game.
Okay.
Saying it was a dream come true. He's always been a Yankees fan. What did Stephen A. Smith do with the pitch, do you think?
What do you do?
What do you think?
Did he Baba Booey it and went wide left?
He bounced it about 30 feet from there. One bounced it into the plate. Looked terrible doing it too. He had no chance of making it to the plate. But the man is stretched thin. I get it. Mm-hmm. But baseball does still draw, particularly at this time of year. As we get into the playoffs, tons of people watch it. There are entire groups from Japan who set up tours to go to Southern California tied into Angels games so Japanese players can go see Ohtani play. This stuff is happening. Just because you don't care about it doesn't mean that nobody does, and you should not be pissing off your audience because you don't know what's going on and trying to cover the fact you do.
It's the second time in a year he's had a ridiculous Ohtani take. Maybe not in a full year, but I believe it was a year ago where he said you can't market him because he's Japanese. Well,
he doesn't speak English, which of course he speaks English just fine.
Does he? I mean, I've never actually heard him speak.
Yeah, he does. He speaks English just fine.
Okay. Saying that, obviously you can market him. If you can market Yao Ming, you can market Shohei Ohtani. And they are, and they do. And anyone who watched the All-Star game, I mean, it was the announcers pretty much had a boner for Shohei the entire game.
Mhm.
It was all about him, as it should be. There is no one else like him, and you can't even say Babe Ruth was, because Babe Ruth only hit and pitched, I think, consistently in like maybe 2 years.
It was only a very few years. He went to the Yankees. He wasn't pitching anymore.
Yeah. So as for that statement on baseball, that's a really stupid thing that's easily debunked in terms of, yes, it's not the same sport. I think the problem, and I'm glad we only do this once a week, right? Because we don't. If we had to do this like an hour every day, I wonder if we would come up with shitty takes too, just because we have nothing else to talk about.
Probably true. And again, Stephen A is doing way too freaking much. But why do we even have Stephen A talking about baseball? The problem with ESPN is not that it became too woke. It's that it just became somebody says something, somebody either argues with them, or somebody says something and somebody completely ignores them and just says what they're going to say. Like two separate things. And there's no continuity there.
Yeah,
And Stephen A is a large part of that issue. He argues to argue because that's what he's there to do.
well, that's the thing. Like he's like, like his old partner Skip Bayless. That's your job, is to be controversial and to come up with something. And he can't help but stick his foot in his mouth, because sometimes he'll step out of takes where he's clearly doesn't know what he's talking about. And
Correct.
This is one of them. Curious, what do you mean too woke? I've heard someone else say that, but I didn't really know what they meant.
I mean, that's why people say ESPN's ratings are down, because they went, too political or whatever. I'm just saying, I don't actually think that's a problem.
Okay,
The actual problem is they went away from actually covering sports to try and become a product themselves. And with a product they came up with, they're like, hey, PTI is a good idea. Let's make it worse on a whole bunch of different shows.
Okay. Yeah, there might be something to that. I don't know about the whole, behind the scenes. I mean, the most woke person they fired.
Yeah.
So
I know. I'm just saying that's one of the arguments I've heard. Regardless.
Yeah. Okay.
Regardless, let's just move on. I don't want to talk about Stephen A anymore. It's just a really bad luck when you say nobody cares about baseball, then come out the next day and say how baseball is so important to you, and you're a Yankees fan first, and then you throw a pitch that bounces. He went on, had a whole video on him going out there like, Jeter told me not to screw this up or I'd never live it down. And all of Yankee Stadium who was there booed the crap out of him. And it was fantastic.
Nice. All right.
Isn't Stephen A a Philly guy too anyway?
I don't know.
He's just a Philadelphia Inquirer. I don't know where he grew up. I haven't paid that much attention. I always just presumed he was a Philly guy first. If he was a Philly guy first and a Yankees fan, forget it. Anyway, lastly, I told you that we would have a special guest here.
Okay.
You ready? And here's our special guest. You know who this man is. He died in 1931.
I wasn't alive in 31.
No.
I don't.
He's on our list.
Bring him up again.
Born in Norway, died in Kansas. Most famous for what he did in Indiana.
I have no idea.
This, my friend, is Newt Rockne.
Oh.
Okay. And the reason I bring up Newt Rockne is tomorrow is Notre Dame's 7th annual Newt Rockne Awards celebration, where they induct Notre Dame legends into the Newt Rockne Society. One of those people they're inducting happens to be a man named John Joseph Nolan Jr., my brother. So I'm going to be going there tomorrow.
Nice.
For the celebration. I'm taking the day off work.
Mm-hmm.
I drive to South Bend, Indiana to try and get there by 11, which means, seeing as I have to drive through Chicago traffic, I may have to leave at 6, even though it's like an hour and a half from here. But I'm driving there to go see my brother get inducted in this. Gonna sit in the front. I'm gonna bring this Newt Rockne statue. This, by the way, is my father-in-law's Newt Rockne statue, which is actually not my father-in-law's at all. It's his Uncle Al's Newt Rockne statue. It's actually not his Uncle Al's either. His Uncle Al, somewhere around 1939 or so, saw this in a bar and said to the barkeep, I want that statue. What do you want for it? Barkeep says, I'm not selling it. If you want it, you have to steal it. All I'm saying is it's 2023 and it's in our family's possession. So I'm not sure how we got it, how Uncle Al got it. I never met the man; he's long dead. But this statue may have been one of the ones they made back in the 30s after he passed away, for whatever Hall of Fame, and it's been sitting in my father-in-law's house for decades now. Actually, my wife, and her siblings thought that this was their grandfather for a long time because they had no idea who New Rocky was, and that was the closest looking person they could find to who this person was.
He was born in Norway.
Yeah, he was actually born in Norway.
Okay.
But yeah, so this is
I don't think I would have got it anyway.
Yeah, there you go. Newt Rockney. I'm actually going to bring this with me tomorrow because if you have a Newt Rockney statue or a Newt Rockney award, you have to bring the Newt Rockney statue.
I would think so.
I don't know how many rules of life there are, but I have 31. That's not one of them, but it's definitely corollary to a rule of life. So Newt Rockney's going to make the trip with me to South Bend, and we'll go from there. But anyway, yeah. So my brother's getting a big award tomorrow, and it's kind
congratulations to your brother.
Yep. Awesome. So that's what we're going for. That's my good.
Okay, so with that, we're going to bring this to a close. In the fall, look for a whole lot of shows that I've been recording over the summer. It's just a little bit tedious adding sort of video things or just telling really my webmaster where to put the video stuff into it because I have to go back and do that. So there's probably about 5 retro football shows that are going to be coming up, hopefully in the fall.
Sorry, just by the way, the answer to the trivia question from earlier, what team has never had a number 1 player play for them? Seattle Seahawks have never had number 1 player play for them.
Okay.
There's one in the NBA as well who's never had number 1 player play for them either. And that's the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers have never had someone draft number 1 overall play for them. So it's just interesting after all this time. So the Seahawks and the Ravens are the only 2 teams that have never actually held the number 1 pick at any point in their histories. So
and Seattle was so bad for so long too.
They were, but they kept finishing second, right? They had Rick Myrer. They had everybody. They were second. They never ever actually had a number 1 pick go there.
Well, so Tampa certainly helped that in the early years.
That's true.
So there'll be a lot of retro football shows coming. We're recording another one tomorrow. That's Super Bowl 13. So I'm looking forward to that one. So it's sort of interesting too. Like when you were mentioning Ginn, it's like, okay, I just watched him play. Obviously not just, but
right.
I did watch that Super Bowl, relatively recent. So that's a show I do with Paul Lawrence that I'm very proud of. There's about 4 in the can of the Classic Sports Review with Glenn Pulowski, who's currently now in Antarctica. So hopefully he's
where there's flowers blooming for the first time in recorded history, by the way.
So that's why that was trending on the X. I didn't
that's not good.
Click on
that's not a good thing.
I wouldn't think that it is.
Yeah.
I didn't want to click on that because I figured whatever it was, it isn't good. And I was in a well, I've been tired. I've been in a relatively good mood. And I wanted to keep it that way.
Understood.
Yeah. So there's that. There's the other Vinny Lospinuso makes Hall of Fame cases, and Vinny makes the Hall of Fame case for. The next one he's going to record with us is on Vern Llewellyn.
Oh yeah, who I finally voted for this year. I was for the 49 class.
Okay.
Into the finals list. I'm not going to vote for him for the final, but he's one of my favorites.
Vinny's actually given me a whole bunch of people that he thinks I should try to reach out to interview, and I'll try to get to it. I've just been a tad busy.
Yeah, I can't say what you've been doing.
Oh, yeah. It almost feels like, what haven't I been doing?
Yeah, it's
another thing. There's also how the hell was this a hit? We missed recording last week. We just did They're Coming to Take Me Away, ho ho hee hee ha ha. Next week will be Styx's Mr. Roboto. I don't know if you want to jump in on that one and just shit all over it.
No. You should do I'm Henry VIII I Am, if you haven't done that one yet.
I'd have to go back and listen to it.
I'm Henry VIII I Am, Henry VIII I Am. I got married to the widow next door. She's been married 7 times before, and everyone was an Henry. Henry wouldn't have a Willie or a Sam. No, Sam, I'm the 8th I am, I Henry. Henry the 8th I am. Second verse, same as the first. It just go over it again.
That is definitely a possibility.
Herman's Hermits. I'm pretty sure that's Herman's Hermits.
It is Herman's Hermits. Yes, Peter Noon. I think
that song, I'm just like, how is that ever on the radio?
I don't know. That would be a very good one for that. Sadly, this show is now devolved between Brad, Andrea, and I. Brad and Andrea being my two co-hosts. I think we're just trying to now torture each other, and that's literally what we're doing in our little Facebook chat group here, which Andrea titled the Nerdcast. So, yeah, that's actually where Andrea and I were told by somebody one of the early shows how we should crawl back into the crevice where we came from.
Wow.
Oh, I didn't tell you that.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah, because we insulted Captain and Tennille.
I really don't. Tennille might care. I'm pretty sure the captain would not give a crap.
Well, the captain's dead, so
Yeah, but even so, the captain seemed like a pretty cool dude.
I was ripping out the captain most of all.
Yeah, I know. I'm just saying he seemed like a guy who knew what he was and wasn't taking everything too seriously, if I put it that way.
The captain is also the same guy who, I mean, like, he struck gold. I mean, you look like that goofball, and then you landed Tony Tennille.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You know, so he was borrowing on
Playing singing with house money.
Yeah, exactly. Talent hack. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll leave now.
And so last thing, guys, are you done?
Yeah, I'm done. Go ahead.
I'll say last thing, please vote for the USA Hall of Fame. You can find us on Facebook. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on Twitter until it demonetizes and everybody leaves. You can find us on
TikTok now.
What else do I post? On YouTube. And of course now, somehow, despite the fact I've never been on it in my life, I think I have over 5,000 views on TikTok with the help of our lovely team over there getting stuff going. So
you can say we have a team now.
Yeah. So please vote for the hall. The numbers have picked up from what you said. That's good news. That's what we want more than anything else. And I've said this before. We are not looking to make money off of this. If we do,
great.
Cool. But it's not what we're trying to do. We're trying to come up with a Hall of Fame for the people, by the people, for the first time ever, on something which we can all sort of agree on, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and like the person who's helping us out said, hashtag ultimate bar.
Ultimate bar debate. Yep. Actually, I'm going to be having one of those bar debates coming up with a friend of mine. I've recorded both Larry Bird and Sweetness.
Peyton.
Yeah, Walter Payton. I've recorded both of them. They're both ready to go. I'm going to release them one after the other coming up here soon-ish. And then I'm going to meet up with my buddy Brooks Sullivan, who's a pretty well-known comedian here in the Midwest. He's going to take Peyton. I'm going to take Bird, and we're just going to go as two. If you're going to vote for one, who are you voting for and why? So he and I have only been talking about this for like 18 months. But I actually, the program itself, the algorithm I use, which is literally I pick every 11th name. That's my algorithm. Had it so they both came up fairly close to each other. So I'm just going to release them fairly close to each other and go from there.
There you go. Sounds good. All right. So with that, wherever you are, wherever you may be, have fun today because it's not going to come again. Later.
Take care, guys.